Welcome back for a new top 20 list. This time we are looking at 20 of the best soundtracks from the 8-bit era of gaming. So more specifically, the 1980s. So with that said, first up, coming in at number 20 is the all-time arcade classic Battletoads, which is also one of the hardest games of all time. But with that said, coming in next at number 19 for me of 8-bit soundtracks is the original classic Metroid for the original NES. Next, coming in at number 18 is the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles soundtrack, specifically the arcade version, is the one I like the most. Coming in at 17 is another classic from the NES era. And coming at number 17 is the original classic Castlevania. Next, coming in at number 16, another all-time classic arcade/NES game. And that is arguably a game I, for some reason, am more fond of than many people out there. But I think it also has a pretty solid overall soundtrack. And at 16 is Ice Climber. Next, coming at number 15, shouldn't be a real surprise. Playing on the original NES, or not me specifically, I would play it in the All-Stars collection. But coming in at number 15 is Super Mario Bros. 3 soundtrack. Next, coming at number 14 is, I think, a criminally underrated game, a superb game from the Game Boy era. And coming at number 14 is the criminally underrated Super Mario Land. Both the game and the soundtrack are both criminally underrated. Next, coming in at number 13, we are looking at a classic on Game Boy and stuff, and then got a limited physical re-release. Coming at number 13 is a game most people have probably never heard of, but still, it's a solid game and has a great soundtrack. And 13 is A Boy and His Blob. I know, the name and everything, but seriously, I actually recommend checking it out. It's a true classic from the 8-bit era. So, with that said, next, coming in at number 12 is another classic from the NES era, though I remember playing it more on the actual Game Boy rather than the original NES, as I never actually owned the original Nintendo. But I remember playing off and on throughout the years. This on Game Boy is a definite classic in my opinion. This would be really probably the first Blue Bomber game that I would truly actually really like. Coming in at 12 is Mega Man 4, or Rockman 4. Coming in next at number 11 is a superb great indie game, which I've only played on the Nintendo Switch. Though it definitely harkens back to the original classic era of Castlevania. And yeah, it is technically an 8-bit game, though the music quality is far better, since it being a relatively more recent era game. Still, it is, and meets the criteria. Coming at 11 is Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. Coming in at number 11 is a game that I think should get more love than it does, and I actually think the music is also solid as well. For me, coming at number 10 is Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. Coming in next at number 9, I remember playing it originally as, funny enough, it was a launch title for the original classic Game Boy. And definite all-time classic. With that said, however, and that being the original Tetris. Coming in next at number 8. Coming in at number 8 is a classic that I know best for playing on the original Sega Master System. And that being the classic Space Harrier, which has a way better soundtrack than it has any right to have. Coming in next at 7 is another indie developed game, which I've only played on the Switch, but it's a superb great game. It has a superb great soundtrack. And I think more people need to check out both the game and actually listen to the music as well. Coming in at 7 is Cave Story. Next, coming in at number 6, originally released on the Game Boy Color, it would be the first of the franchise, and the second game also would be technically 8-bit, and then it would go to 16-bit. But still, surprisingly great soundtrack for being a Game Boy Color game. At number 6 goes to the original classic Shantae. Next, coming at number 5, is of course the original classic Final Fantasy. Comes in at number 5. It has a great all-time classic early era soundtrack from that specific time period. And next, coming in at number 5 is arguably, in my opinion, the best of the early era NES games of the Blue Bomber. That being, of course, obviously Mega Man. At number 4, though, soundtrack goes to Mega Man 2. Arguably one of the absolute best of the original Mega Man series, and also a superb soundtrack that really stands out, I think, of this time period of earlier platformers. Coming in at number 3 is definitely probably one of the most classic games you can think of, with iconic music and sounds and everything of the 8-bit era of soundtracks. Coming at number 3 goes to Super Mario Bros., the original. With that said, coming in at number 2 goes to the original classic, of course, the original The Legend of Zelda. And you can't give any worse or any better. When it comes to 8-bit era games, the original Legend of Zelda is a true classic, and I recommend to more people to check out. Coming in at number 1, though, originally on the Game Boy Color, is a game that will always stand out to me, specifically for certain music that created somewhat interesting theories throughout the years, that being the theme music for Lavender Town. So now you know, for me personally, my favorite 8-bit game soundtrack of all time goes to Pokemon Yellow Edition, or Pikachu Edition rather. And yes, to me, Pokemon Red, Blue, whatever, Yellow, awesome soundtrack, definitely a classic, and easily, I think, the best, easily, soundtrack period off of the Game Boy / Game Boy Color, or anything of the 8-bit game series of many different games throughout the years. Definitely, the early Pokemon game soundtracks really stand out to me. Specifically this one, though, more than any other, as heavy nostalgia factor. But with that said, that is just a list of, in my opinion, 20 of the all-time classic 8-bit game soundtracks. So with that said, I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel. Quick mention, have a new comic video coming soon. Issue 0 of Street Fighter 6. Stay tuned for that. See you soon.